Hello, hello, hello. So I am Dawn Grace Jones. I am a registered nurse and I'm an attorney in South Florida. And today I'm going to briefly chat with you, if you don't mind, bringing you information I am sure you could use. And it's on the legal aspects of documentation in healthcare. But before I get into that, let me give you a little bit about my background. I am, as I stated, a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse since the 80s, right? I started off on the floors like we all do. Worked bedside, worked ICU, worked in management in ICU as well. I've worked home health, high-tech home health, giving chemo and infusion in the home setting. Done a lot of different things in nursing. I've used my nurse and legal background together, actually working as a risk manager, which I loved. Risk is awesome as well. And having a nursing background, that just made it all the better because I had the background to understand what I was dealing with. So looking for deviations and patterns of behavior and issues as it relates to system and people, but systematic mostly, is really interesting, good work. Everything I've done, I thank God that I could do it and I was able to do it and have been and continue to do. So I am an attorney since 1991. Working both together is something I do and love doing. I'm a former assistant city attorney, so yes, I've worked for the government, done a lot of things in law. I'm a title agent, a lot of real estate transactions, different things I've done. Work presently still as a special magistrate. So I make rulings on cases. I make decisions on cases. I listen and have parties before me and I make decisions. I also work litigating still in workers' compensation. But my goal has been, and I'm doing that now, I bring everything I have back to healthcare, back to nurses. That's my goal, to help uplift, bring awareness, help us with our self-care, because that's what I talk about a lot. But I also talk about things like what I'm going to talk to you about today, which is a very important subject matter that we are dealing with, and that's the legal aspects of documentation in healthcare, because it's something we need to be able to deal with. And so there's a book, yes, there are ebooks. There's a lot of free information, blog information on my website, which is dawngracejones.com. And I'd like you to take a look at that, right? Go to that site. And if you would, sign up for the newsletter so you will get information. I think it's very important that we help each other out. So like I said, there's a lot of free information on that site, but there's some books there I think you'll love. Anyway, our objectives today will be that this lecture, upon completion of this lecture, you will be able to understand the history of documentation when going from paper to the electronic health record. You'll also be able to understand or identify some of the benefits as well as the dysfunctional characteristics of the electronic health record. Upon completion of this lecture, you should be able to recognize what triggers what I call the legal response. How is it that lawyers get involved? What happens that causes problems such that lawyers are a part of this? And so what I call it, lawyers at the back door. How does that happen? How does it end up being a lawsuit? That's what I'm talking about, right? And you'll be able to understand some remedies to correct some of these problems that will be brought out today. So that's what we're doing. So let's move on. So I think before you start anything, before you start your day, it's really important that you reflect. And what do I mean by this? It's important that you look at yourself. Look at what did it take for you to get from where you were before to get to where you are now? What did it take to be able to step up to this place? I know we were nervous. I know we were trying to figure it out. But when you think about it, you have to do self-assessments and look at yourself so you can remember who you are and why you're here. And you want to start there. You want to focus. You want to line up information, right? So you're at work and you're doing your patient assessment and, you're remembering your information from school, all this data, your critical thinking. It's important, but you got to start from somewhere, because a lot of times we get off task and we deviate from our standards. Because when we come to work, we're already bombarded with life, and we brought yesterday's work and last year's work, and we just keep going on. So at some point we have to stop and reflect. We got to clean our slate, before we start our day, and just make sure we're okay. And remember where we are and why we're here. As a risk manager, I used to have nurses in front of me, and they would sit and they would cry. Cry, because they realized that, wow, this happened, and I didn't mean for it to happen. I'm a great nurse. I know my stuff, and I do it well, but look at this. And it was because they weren't thinking, they weren't focused, they deviated. And that causes mistakes. So we want to do a self-reflection. We want to sit and remember when we start our day, why we are here. We want to stay focused, stay on task, who we are, and what are we doing. So next, let's go through this. Let's talk about what the history of documentation. So we know we started off with paper. Everything was in paper charts. What do I mean by that? We had these binder clipboard type things, right? And we would flip it open, right? Remember? Come on, some of you remember, some of you have never seen it, but I just want to help you understand what we had. Everything was in one place in this book, mostly. And I'll tell you why I say that. So in that booklet, you had your doctor's orders and tabs at the bottom. You would flip it, right? Doctor's orders, nurse's notes, progress notes, labs, everything was in there. So you could flip and you could see if the consultant came in yet, or if they didn't. You could say make another call. You can go back to your doctor's notes right there. You could see what was going on. You can go back and forth in this document, and it made a lot of sense, and it worked well, right? There was also, everything was written with a date and a time, and then whatever you wrote the entry, it was signed at the bottom. So everybody followed that pattern, if you will, and that pattern helped us to stay together as a team, because we all use the same chart, right? So if there was a correction to be made, how do we make the correction? Does anybody remember that? What did we do? Put a line through it, one line, because you had to see what was there. And you wrote error and your initials, and you wrote next to that whatever you were supposed to have written. So here's the thing. As an attorney, when I used to review charts that were paper charts, if I saw errors, it was okay. I knew that that's what happened in that same moment, real time, and the next part is what was supposed to be there. So it almost didn't matter what that error was. The reason it would raise as an issue is if they smudged it out, tried to black it out, tried to scratch it out, put white out on the document or something. But if you put one line through it, that was not a problem. It could say jump in the lake. It just didn't matter. Why? Why didn't it matter? Because it was obviously a mistake, right? And you went forward from there. Just understand that. We had this thing called a Cardex. The Cardex was an index card, and it was written in pencil, and you kept it up, right? It was like a summary of your patient. And so when you took off orders, whatever changed on the Cardex, you changed it. So what did the Cardex have on it? It would have the name, of course, history of the patient, just a little blurb, just a little 2-line, 3-line of the history. Diagnosis, treatments, weight, diet, allergies, precautions, activities, all that stuff on this little card, right? It was awesome. If you had IV fluids going, all your medicines weren't there, but your IV fluids may be there, and where that IV was located on the patient. So it was a patient at a glance. It was awesome. But we had the same goal as we have with the electronic health record. And what is that? That goal is to paint a picture of the patient. So now we have, formatted systems, right? And everything populates and it does all this stuff. But remember, it's now to paint a picture of the patient. And that's what it was before as well. All right? Let's take a look at something else. We're going to take a look at this book first. I want you to take a look at this slide. So The Electronic Health Record, Document Properly, Avoid Litigation is a book. And it's a book that's on the site, dawngracejones.com. And it's just on here to show you the cover of the book. It has a lot of the information like I'm giving now, but it's in a book. And a lot of nurses that have read it have said how they enjoyed it. They couldn't put it down. I'm just reading some of what they said. Learned a lot, caused them to examine themselves. Look at yourselves, right? They could see themselves in the deposition that's in the book, right? They could see how that could happen. It was a very easy read, and they think that all nurses and nursing students need to read this book. That's one that works for Memorial Health Systems. She's a master's prepared nurse, master holding nurse. She holds her master's degree. The other one's an OR manager in New York. And she wrote that all nurses must read this book. And you have to read it, and you'll understand exactly why. You know, it helps you with documenting in every patient on the electronic medical record. And her team of nurses, she's going to encourage them all to read it. So that's just a little bit of blurb about the book. But listen, look in the middle. Look in the middle. In the middle is a copy of the actual system. So I have my little pointer here. And so you got your screen there. Be careful, because patients, families, and visitors will walk up and look at that screen while you're working. Remember HIPAA. You have to protect this information. So be very careful. This desktop, be careful. You don't want to put any paper. This is not where you organize anything. You keep it clear. Why? Same reason. You don't want people to see your patient information. It is private. So don't put anything there. You may see these systems on the walls in the patient rooms, on the walls in the hallways, or you can roll them around like this. And all the way to the right, I'm showing just a sample of nurses' progress notes. Just look real quickly. We actually wrote our notes out. Everything was written in a paper chart. So it's just a sample so you could see that. Like I said, you have your date there, the time, and then you have your information. This is a SOAP format. Sometimes you wrote just entry. Entry, 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 which is awesome, awesome, awesome as well. You do your SOAP, and then you do entries along the way. Entries, what do you mean, Dawn? I mean, you may put the date and time. Maybe they had a portable chest x-ray, so you write portable chest x-ray. And then if the patient is fine, patient tolerated well, and then you sign it. So you know at that time, that date, that's what happened. So that's how we took care of that stuff. So just note, the largest U.S. initiative was given to the healthcare systems with the electronic health record to encourage its use. And this was a part of the stimulus package in 2009. So we're talking about use of the electronic health record. How did that start? That's where it started, right? There were a lot of benefits expected, right? You wanted to improve the quality of care. Considering now that they're computerized, as you can see in this picture, computerized notes, and they're easily read, right? And so they should decrease the risk of errors and misinterpretations, because now you're talking about printed up, typed up, computerized information, right? So Medicare and Medicaid both said, hey, we're giving these initiatives, and they're still doing this yearly, by the way, but you have to show meaningful use. What does that mean? They're not just going to give an initiative because you're using the system. You have to show you using it, applying certain standards. You have certain standards in place. What do I mean by that? They're checking to see if there's quality. The system is actually improving the quality of care. And they're making sure, you have to make sure it's for safety. It engages patients and families. It improves care coordination and good for public health. It reduces discrepancies, and it does so much. So these are merit-based incentive payments that are made for the use of this system. Just want you to understand that, because it's so important. And so this slide shows the electronic health record and our paper documentation, just briefly, just showing you that. Please understand. So let's move forward. So let's look at some of the benefits, if you will, of the electronic health record. This system is awesome. So I mentioned earlier, these are computerized formats, right? They were not available before, you know that. Sophisticated system. And it's a different type of system. It has different systems in it. And it can alert and remind us of certain prevention and screening dates. It does that. And it improves communication between people. For instance, what do I mean by that? Patients, family members, and doctors all communicate through the system. And I know that firsthand. I go to the doctor. I can actually communicate with my doctor when I'm home. I get my labs coming in, and it's just not just me because I'm a nurse. Everyone gets the same thing. Everyone has access to their medical record, and doctors can watch us and monitor us better because of this. This system puts in place clinical support systems, like I said. So you have computerized order entry systems, and health information exchange is great. It improves all of that. It was designed to do that, right? There are societal benefits. It helps with research, thereby improving population health with less cost. I'm just telling you how awesome this is with research. You know, it helps with gathering information. You know, I used to be on the clinical trials committee, and I would sit there and listen to the trials and actually sit there and vote on whether or not, you know, I thought as a risk legal nurse person, whether or not we should do that trial and why or why not. But I can tell you, information was so easily available when I sat in those meetings, because now they can just pull numbers and pull why, you know, pull this, pull that. And so you have this summary in front of you instead of all of these papers and trying to flip through them. It's very easy now. Things are easier. Reports are easily available. So this is good stuff. Now you have secure data keeping, and workflow is generally smoother. And that's one of the goals, you know. So you're talking about a decrease in healthcare costs too, because now you don't have all that paper. So these are some of the awesome things the system does. Patient surveillance is better. So I can tell you that doctors can now watch their patients better when their patients are home. It works well. The patients are, yes, they are home, the doctor's in the office, there are monitors they can watch from the office, and this is all because of these systems. So now patients are treated when? Sooner. Think about that. That's awesome. All of this is true, right? So when you talk about the system being great, I've just given you a lot of things about how awesome this system is. A lot of true things. But let me take you to a case. Let's talk about a case. This case is a situation where a woman, and this is a real case, real legal case, presented to the ER with a headache, right? But it was a different headache from her usual migraine headaches. It was different, right? And so she had gone to the doctor. She had gotten no relief. She had gone twice. And now this 47-year-old attorney, this is a true story, is in the ER with this headache, right? Because the doctor was unsuccessful in the office with helping her out, right? So the test was ordered. What testing? What are they checking for? They're checking to see if she has an aneurysm, right? See if she's bleeding in the head, right? That's one of the tests they usually do with persistent headaches, right? The test was ordered, and a short time passed, and then she died. How did that happen? This is a federally qualified healthcare center, and they were sued. Why? Review of the electronic health record. It was noted that her doctor did consider the possibility of an aneurysm. Her doctor did want to rule that out and ordered the CAT scan, right? And the order was put through the software system, all right? And that test, we know, would have noted the bleeding in her head. However, the order never made it to radiology. It was not transmitted. I want you to understand that. It was not transmitted. The order never went where it was supposed to go. Unfortunately, it did not. Um, it just stopped, and it didn't make it through there. And so it was said that the doctor didn't put the order through. The doctor said they did put the order through. Um, it was a problem, but this isn't unique. This isn't unique. This type of thing sometimes happens with the systems, with the technology of these electronic health records. So I want you to know that there are problems and risk, and we are going to talk about them now. So let's look at this. How do we go from the paper to the electronic health record? We had to start somewhere, right? So let me give you a case, right? A doctor sent his patient home twice, true case. Sent the patient home twice, saying the condition was not that serious. The patient died at another facility. The patient died of a heart attack because the diagnosis was not made in time, right? And here, the doctor could have traced the records in the system and as well as the paper, but instead the doctor used the paper only. So of course the wife said, wait a minute, this is a problem. The wife got an attorney because they said, no, this isn't right. The hospital the hospital failed by not storing the results in the right system is what the case was about. That's what they were saying, right? And so the doctor settled his case. The doctor settled. However, the hospital wanted to go through litigation process and they took it to court, and that's fine. So the analysis of the court was to look at the behavior of institutions that at that time still had the paper chart and the electronic health record. So you're talking about parallel existence of the medical record, right? You know, both, right? So the court said the standard of care would demand that the hospital include the patient information in the computer as well as the paper chart. That's what they said, right? And with that, everybody started putting everything in one place. So you had a lot of what we had to do was they had to do is cut and paste information from paper into systems. So you have a lot of that going on, but you could guess what happened, right? That only increased the mistakes because the error in one record turned into dozens. You can imagine this, right? Dozens of errors in many places. And it did that. And so that was the medical mal issue now, right? You had lost or destroyed information. You had outdated and inaccurate information moving into the present time. That is sad. So when you talk about cutting and pasting now, we still have a lot of cutting and pasting going on. How? We have doctors and nurse practitioners and PAs and sometimes registered nurses. Got to be careful with that, you know, because in litigation, what are we looking for? As an attorney, I can tell you, we're looking at repetition of exactly the same information, right? So that raises the suspicion, especially if it's in the records of different patients, right? Or the same patient, different visits, or different times you've seen the patient, same exact information. What would be important is there are particulars with each patient or each visit or each time you examine the patient. You want to have particulars with each day. You want to make sure of that because otherwise it leads to treatment errors. And that's why you have to be careful with that, right? So let's move forward and look at the next part of this. Drop-down menus. What's a drop-down menu? A drop-down menu is when you can click and it opens up and you have several lines that you could select from, right? So a lot of times that information is confusing. And if you get the book, you'll see there's a case actually in there about that where different professionals interpreted information different and relied on it, and someone subsequently died because of that. But with drop-down menus, you want to consider who writes the choices, right? Who wrote that stuff in there? Like, okay, let me give you some example. If you're talking about pedal pulses. And one option is absent pedal pulses. And the other is unable to obtain. This is after, you had a 1 that may have been +1, +2. Then you have absent and unable to obtain. If the person is a below the knee amputation, which one would you use? Now, some of you should say, oh, I already know. I would put unable to obtain because they don't have legs, or that leg, or that part of the leg, sorry. But what about absent pedal pulses? There are those who argue that's the answer, but you have to have a meeting of the mind, so to speak, and understand these options the same. And that's just one example, right? You want to be aware of the person who says, this is what we always select. If you are being trained in an area and they say to you, don't worry about it, 4 selections, but this is what we always put. You better know what each selection says, what it means, and if or not, if you should or shouldn't be using it. And for this patient, because remember, you still should be painting pictures of your patient, right? You want to make sure those options do that. And sometimes you can also have incomplete or limited charting, and it may not say enough. And checkoffs. A lot of times checkoffs, the checks where you click, 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 are overlooked. Like, look at your fall assessment. If the patient is high risk for falls, sometimes it'll open up other areas, these systems that says mats on the floor or a low boy bed, or what does that happen? Or are you ignoring that stuff? You can't ignore things. You have to understand why it's there. Think about it. If they were downloading that chart to be reviewed, a lawyer, that stuff's not there. That's a big problem, right? So you want to make sure you can paint a picture of your patient. You want to make sure canned information makes sense for your patient. You want to make sure your automatic features, what automatically goes over, accurately shows your patient's assessment. One of my students, because I teach a policy course on a graduate level online, my student said she works as a registered nurse, had been working a while, but when I talked about the checkoffs and she read my ebook, she says, oh my God, I cannot believe we were actually ignoring her whole floor. We're ignoring a whole part of the chart. And I didn't get into details with her, but she says it caused her to speak with her management. And then they were advised and they had a little in-service on what they should be doing, and they got it right. That's important. Again, if the whole chart is downloaded to be reviewed, it's a problem. Drop down menus may not cover all possibilities. Going back to drop downs, you have to be careful, okay? You don't want confusion. You don't want incomplete or limited charting. It must make sense. It must paint a picture of the patient. That is important. Sometimes the systems are poorly designed. You have to look at that. Software can lead to administration of potentially dangerous medication doses. These are things you need to be aware of. Lack of training may cause a big problem. Let me give you a case. I love to do cases because it just brings it home, right? So this fellow arrived in the ER, and this is 2015 case. He came in the ER because he had, by way of fire rescue, because he had 2 days of disorientation, headaches, fever. This is how he felt, right? So the doctor ordered what we would think, we're nurses, we understand this stuff, spinal tap, right? Because the physician suspected meningitis, right? The following day, the infectious disease specialist ordered the fluid to be checked for viruses such as herpes simplex. The order appeared on the screen. However, it was not sent to the lab. So are we following up on our orders? We know what was ordered. Has this been done? How long has the patient been sitting and he hasn't this been, or where are the lab, where are the results? Are we following up, right? Has this been done? It was put on the screen. However, it was not sent to the lab. The bottom line, it didn't fully interface. Okay, so ultimately the patient's result and diagnosis were delayed for days, and he claimed that during that time, he ended up with irreversible brain damage from herpes encephalitis, right? So if there was a timely diagnosis, they would have ordered, we're nurses, we understand, a cyclovir, a medication that might have minimized the brain damage. But that didn't happen, right? So I want you to understand this stuff is real, right? So the company tried to defend, and they said, hey, the doctor failed by not pushing the correct button. See, that could be us there accusing of not pushing something, clicking something, writing something, right? And sent it over not the electronic health record, they said, of course. They said that was fine, but that company quietly paid $1.5 million to settle in 2018. You need to understand this. The hospital and two of the doctors paid $7.5 million. The third doctor's case was outstanding when I last did the research. Just want you to understand how this stuff comes home. Sometimes it's the system. Sometimes it's us and our actions. Be careful. Let me give you another case. Just note, a patient's treatment for cancer was delayed 10 years because the system did not refer the physician to the more recent results, which were the correct diagnosis. Instead, it referred the doctor to older, normal results, unfortunately. And cutting and pasting didn't help this, with us trying to get these systems together. So these things are really, really, really important. Note that most errors or injuries from the electronic health record come from wrongful ordering and administering of drugs. Who gives the drugs? We do usually, right? And erroneous diagnosis from lack of much needed information by the electronic health record. So did we put it in? Did we put it in correctly? Did we put it all in? Does it paint a picture? So we have to look at that. Simple things can cause big problems, leading to wrong treatment or death. I need you to get that. Your patients need you to get that. So listing of patients' names or numbers in the system may be too small. Look for these types of things, please. It may be the wrong name. Incorrect medication may be selected. All of these things are important. There may be lack of interoperability with other systems. You want these systems to interface and work, but are they? So there are systems that are being addressed right now because the medication list may not be reliable. Prescribed drugs sometimes don't show up. Discontinued drugs may show as current. These are things I need you, your patients need you to understand, right? So, you have these patients and ER patients. And so when you talk about things like clinical trials, I used to work on clinical trials. And I want to give you this example. There was a time that, I said, well, I'm not getting, it appears, all of, and this is me, attorney, but nurse, risk manager, I'm not getting flagged. I'm not getting emails of anything going wrong with clinical trials, and I know they aren't perfect. I know that. So what's going on? I'm not getting anything to review in risk. I'm not getting any incidents. So I said, you know what? I need you guys to pull from me the last 90 days of the ER patients that are flagged as clinical trial patients, so I can look at what they came in for and I can follow them that way. How about they were having a hard time pulling that particular group for me? Why? Because the ER patients were flagged with different things. So if a person was on dialysis, for example, they were flagged accordingly. If they were on chemotherapy, they were flagged accordingly. And it didn't allow for being flagged for more than one thing. So if they were a clinical trials patient, that wouldn't show. So just know that sometimes these systems, we need to have them tweaked, twerked, whatever needs to happen. We need to get them worked out, but we need to know that there are issues. When you talk about nurse-patient relationships, you know how important that is, right? So you know, that's everything to us. That's critical time in care is for us to be with our patients. We're doing our assessments, we're checking them out, right? But we have to be fully engaged, meaning when we turn our backs to our patients, or we turn and we're not looking at them, or we didn't go over and touch them and know that they're warm. We didn't see that, you know, that condition in the skin. They may have even mentioned that they're just came in yesterday and they're saying their heel hurts. But then we touch the skin and look at the heel and see that discoloration. They may have a deep tissue injury forming that we could chart to make it clear that they had it when they came in. This is one reason. Because if not, we eat it. The hospital does, because they'll say they got it while they were with us. They wouldn't know when they got it. But the Medicare would say that. So we have to be so careful, not only for that, but for giving the best care. We want to do really good assessments. But if we're not fully engaged because we're looking at our systems and we're trying to figure out the system and the patients over there, and we're not giving them the attention, that's a problem. Informed consent, we need to know if that patient understood what's going to happen. We need to be looking at them, right? So we have to now cognitively switch between focusing on the record and on patients. And it's not easily. You know, we're spending more time with data entry. We need to understand that. So we are aware of it now. We can make a conscious decision to do better, right? So some nurses and some doctors have said things, and I want you to know that. They said using the electronic health record is a lot like texting while driving. They said it's like being a CEO running a board meeting while taking the minutes. They said it's like a judge, being a judge in a trial, but also being the court reporter at the same time. So it's just really showing that we're being pulled in different directions, right? Need to understand that. So be careful. These systems are very vulnerable to hacking, right? And there are a lot of breaches, unfortunately. This information that we keep in the electronic health record is very attractive to other industries, right? And the law restricts what access is given to whom. And there are penalties to those who unlawfully access, but also there are penalties for those who are in charge of protecting data, as we're in charge of that as healthcare professionals, right? So note that. So we have to be careful because there's a high risk of breach of confidentiality with these systems. Late entries. I spoke about corrections before, but can you imagine now when you do a late entry, it is a late entry. Corrections, you need to possibly find out how your systems do corrections. But the thing about the attorney saying, oh, that's an error, don't forget about it, it's okay, let's move on, that doesn't weigh with this. That's going to really be looked into, right? So did you know, let me ask you this, and the system will show whether a person was alerted to a finding and ignored it. Like a doctor, if they were alerted to it and ignored it, the system is going to show that. By the same token, it's going to show if guidelines were followed, right? And if you didn't follow guidelines, right? You know, the system can't embrace all possibilities. So why? You may have to say why you went outside of the guidelines. And so you need to understand that. These are things that it wasn't like that before because it was just what it is. Now, and you could document and show your unique situation so easily. Now things are just there in some regards. So you can't just, it's harder to just go where you need to go. You have to justify it. I want you to think about this. And this is regarding a physician, but it could be regarding a nurse practitioner, physician's assistant, or a nurse. You may very well have to explain why you did something, right? And information that's available during the trial, during that time, may not be the same information that was available when you made the decision. I want you to think about that. That could be a serious proof issue. And you need to understand that it does not give all possibilities. So it's all about covering yourself as you go along and the system making sense. We're going to go forward now because I want to show you something. So I'm going to give you a scenario, right? I want you to put yourself in this scenario. It's important. I want you to put yourself in this scenario. You and your cousin work at the same hospital. You are an awesome, awesome ICU nurse. You have been there for, I don't know, you've been there 15 years. Your cousin has been there 10 years in the ER. You make sure you guys have the same shift, same schedule, right? Everything. So you go to lunch together every time you work. Everybody knows you and your cousin. They know you're coming down to get your cousin 1 o'clock. You're going to lunch, right? So you come to the ED that's this day, and what's your cousin's name? Oh, Sam. So you're like, Sam, let's go. And you're so loud, and everybody knows that, but they accept it and they don't care. So you come and you walk down, and you're awesome, and you look, you're in the ER, and you just happen to look at bed 7 while you stand there to wait for Sam. And you notice the patient there. You know, a lot of people are taking, they're on these opioid drugs. We know we have a problem with this. And this guy looks like somebody who may be a little high, and it's okay. And he has on his street clothes, and you see he's on the monitor though, because you see his heart rate is 56, and you just glance, because you're an ICU nurse and you're really good, and you just kind of glance it. You see like 4 ER people around that door or in the room, but they're right there. And you see that patient just like kind of out of it, but they're in the bed. All the rails up except that bottom one right there, and the leg is kind of out. So you, because you're such a good nurse and you just like things to be right, and it just bothers you that that leg is out, you dash over, you snatch some gloves, and I mean, this is what you do. You throw the gloves on, you throw the leg up in the bed, you push the rail up, and you make a little noise laughing. Oh, excuse me, guys, just gotta get this leg up, put this rail up, just helping out, take the gloves off, go to wash your hands, and you say, come on, Sam, let's go. And you leave. You go to lunch. You guys have a great lunch. Have a good time, as always. And you come back. And when you come back in that emergency room, that charge nurse person jumps in your face and says, hey, your cousin is Sam, so you're Samantha. Hey, Samantha. Or maybe you're another Sam. Hey, Sam. Need you to put a note in that chart. How am I going to put a note? Note for what? What are you talking about? That patient expired, and I saw you go in the room. I went in the room to throw the leg up and put the rail up. I didn't do anything. I didn't do any patient care. I'm not writing anything. I can't write in here how I'm going to write in here. I don't have a sign on in this area. This is so unfair. This is so stupid. I can't believe you telling me this. I'm not doing that. That's silly. Charge nurse says, you know what? I'm going to write a note because you were in there. You touched the patient. That is silly. I didn't do anything for the patient. You go. But as you go up to the unit, you do what you do because you are who you are, right? You call your cousin on the cell, and your cousin's like, hey, I can't talk right now. I'm trying to work. And you're like, that charge nurse is so stupid. I can't believe the charge nurse is telling me I needed to write a note. How can I write? I can't talk to you right now. Gotta go. And your cousin hangs up. You go back to work and you forget all about it. 3 months pass by. You get an email from claims, right? Telling you that on certain date and time that you're scheduled to work. Attorney wants to take your examination under oath, which is your statement. Not really a deposition, but a lot like a deposition, but a little more thorough usually. Anyway, nobody sat down and spoke with you about it. Nobody said a word, but they told you. And you're yelling and screaming because you're mad because you don't want to do it and you think it's stupid. Anyway, they tell you you have to do it. So day before they remind you, and then you go down. And you come down to a conference room. Let's look at this room. There's an attorney, there's a court reporter, there's a claims rep from the hospital, maybe an attorney, maybe not, to represent you. Maybe there's an attorney on the phone to represent you, but nobody said anything to you. No one said anything to you to prepare you. No one. And you see this attorney sitting there. And I'm going to be the attorney, and I want you to be in the nurse's place mentally. I may give some of the answers so you can know just how it usually goes, and it'll probably be the answer you would give. I'm going to do this quickly so you could just get a feel for this statement / deposition, right? My name is Dawn Grace Jones of Jones & Jones, and I represent the estate of John Doe. Have you ever had your statement taken before? No, that's you. I'm going to ask you questions, and I need you to answer these questions. Let me give you a couple of ground rules. I need you to answer as best you can with a full answer. Do not give me a nod or shake or uh-huh or uh-uh. That won't work, because note that the court reporter cannot take down those things. You need to open your mouth and answer. If you answer the question, I shall assume that you understood the question. So if you don't understand, I ask that you ask me for clarification if you don't understand. If you need a break, let me know. If you need to go to the restroom, water, whatever it is, let me know. The only thing I ask is that you answer whatever question that's been asked that's on the table before we take a break, right? I need you to answer truthfully and clearly, okay? You remember you are under oath, you're going to be. And so if you don't answer properly, like if you're telling an untruth, it's a crime and it will be dealt with accordingly. So now we will go to the questions. State your name for the record. What is your address? What are the last 4 numbers of your social? Let's go off the record for that. We'll go off the record. And do you have a driver's license with you? I'd like you to give it to the court reporter. When we're done, they'll give it back. We'll go back on the record. So I just put as Exhibit 1 the driver's license of this witness. Thank you. Where do you work? What is your occupation? How long have you worked in that capacity? How long have you worked at whatever the name of the place is? Where did you work prior to coming to? What was your job at the prior employer? Have you ever been involved in a lawsuit? If so, why don't you tell me about it? When was that? Have you ever been before the Board of Nursing or any other regulatory body or anything like that? Tell me what happened. Have you ever been convicted of a crime or involved in a crime, especially a crime involving fraud? As a nurse, do you document your patient care? I'm going to do the answer now. Yes, we write everything for our patients. Do you document sometimes or all the time? We document all of the time. We document everything. I'm doing both parts, so understand. Are there times that you're involved with patients that you do not write? There should not be. Why do you document patient care? Because it's the only way we know what has happened. It's how we communicate between the team, right? Between the staff. It's very important. That's what we do. You know, it's a record. Okay. Do you recall July 1st, 2018? It was a Sunday. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, do you recall being a part of a situation involving a patient in an emergency room named John Doe? No, not really. I went to go to lunch with my cousin, and I just went in through the patient's leg. I placed the patient's leg in the bed because I saw the leg hanging out of the bed. I put the side rail up. I did everything I should have done. I did everything right. I didn't really take care of the patient or anything. I was going to lunch. That's what I was doing. And I just stopped to help out. That's what I did. But I didn't do like patient care like that. I just put his leg in the bed and put the side rail up. I understand. Thank you. Let me ask you something. Did you see the patient's medical record? No, I didn't. Okay. I'm going to show you a page of the record. Most of the information may have been blocked out, but I'm going to show you this. And I want you just to look at it really quickly. And so I'm marking this as Exhibit 2, by the way. Now I'm telling the court reporter that, this record. So who is John Doe? That's the patient from what you said. Okay, so who is Sam Smith? That's me. Okay, okay. So is that your name on this document along with the patient's name? Yes, that's my name. Do you know why your name is on this document? No, I don't. That name shouldn't be there. Okay. Do you know why your name is on the document? You said no, right? So do you know how your name got on that document? How did your name get on this record? Yes, the charge nurse said that she was going to put my name on the document because I didn't feel comfortable writing it. So she said she was going to write something and put my name on there. She said that something like that when I was walking through the emergency room trying to go back to work. Okay, let me ask you this. Why would the charge nurse write your name in the chart? Because she said that since I went to help the patient, I should have written a note. That's what she said. Okay, she said that. So what did you do? I helped the patient whose leg was like out of the bed, like coming out of the bed. I put the leg back. That's all I did. So let me ask you this. When you're assisting a patient, is that considered patient care? Yes. In this regard, did you assist this patient? Yes. Okay. So let me ask you this. Did you document anything about the patient care you gave? No, because I don't work in the emergency room. I'm not logged into that area, right? Into that system. I don't even think my password would work in that area. You know, I always document, but I didn't document because I don't even think that would, okay, okay. Then are you saying you did not document regarding this situation? Yes or no? No, I didn't document. Okay. So is there a time that you did not document, although you said earlier that you document everything? Yes. Okay. So you stated there should be no times in patient care that you did not document. Is that correct? Yes, but I had a reason for that. I didn't document because I thought I couldn't, you know. So you knew that you should have written a note based on what you said, right? Is that correct? Yes, but I couldn't write it. I'm stopping there, scene, if you will. I'm stopping there because I just want you to get it. Do you see where I'm going, how I got there? So I would say, let's give them back their driver's license once you make a copy, and we would end it. You know, I'd ask the other side if they had any questions they want to get asked, your attorney, and then I'd ask if they want to order the record. The court reporter would ask us if we want to order it or whatever. But through all of that, you could see how nerve-wracking it can be, how frustrating it can be for the professional nerves. Most times, there isn't a lot of prep or no prep at all, usually. You know, we think critically, and we're great at what we do. We're awesome. That's who we are. And a lot of people say, well, you know what? For them to do that, they're wasting their time because I did nothing wrong. Well, let me tell you something. If an attorney is paying money to sit through a deposition, their time is usually $350, $400 an hour if they're experienced. They're paying for the court reporter. They're paying for this. They're not going to do this unless they feel there's a reason. You need to understand there are people that review these records line by line, page by page, looking for what's not there, looking for mistakes, if you will, problems. So things like, you know, the system may not interface. You know, you may say, oh gosh, that's in SurgeNet. We're using this system, but our surgical part is this system, and I can't even see what's in there. But I needed to know in time out before surgery, this, and this. I don't even know, and I can't get into that. That's something you need to know and think about. Okay? I need you to understand how serious this is. It's very serious. This is critical stuff. So let's talk about remedies. Let's talk about how we recover. Let's just understand, you know, you may not experience any of these problems. You may experience some of them. You may experience things you didn't even realize you were going through because you didn't know it was an issue. So we talk about nurse-patient relationships. Make eye contact, right? Tell the patient, it's okay if you interrupt me. I'm going to put this information in the system, but I want to hear from you. That's important to me. It's important that I know how you're feeling. It's important that I know what's going on with you. So talk to me, please. Interrupt me. It's okay. So make eye contact and you tell that patient to interrupt you. You want to make a full assessment of your patient. Touch your patient. Go over there. Do what you got to do. Do not get so used to making sure this system is done and right that you don't do your patient care. You got to keep that relationship good as far as where it needs to be. When I say good, you are taking care of your patient. You are doing what you have to do, and then you're documenting. And your patient should be comfortable while you're documenting and taking care of them. And yes, you got to do both together. Sometimes there are design and performance issues. So you're going to follow the orders, right? And you're going to do all you can do. But you got to see if there's a problem because the system is not allowing you to do something you need to do to follow that order or to paint the picture of your patient. So when you see that, what do? You need to report it. And the system should give you places you can write out things. These systems are getting better and better because they're tweaking them as we go along. And some of them realize that we need to be able to write it out, to describe it, to make sure it's clear, to make sure we have great communication and we have a picture of our patient. But where you see you cannot write it out, where you see it doesn't allow you to do certain things and there are problems, report this system. IT, sometimes they have a nurse IT department. I think that's awesome for systems that have that. So you report it, but you tell management, you tell somebody. Alerts, pay attention to the alerts. Do not ignore those alerts because those alerts are clear part of the documentation now that it even alerted. So you need to know that the system knows it alerted you and you did nothing or everything. And sometimes if the alert doesn't make sense, you need to tell them this thing is alerting so much that we can't focus on what we need to focus on. But you tell somebody, you talk about it. Cutting and pasting, you want to double check. If you're going to use the feature or you know people that are using that, cutting and pasting, double check the content after you cut and paste, right? Make sure you double check it. Make sure it's relevant, it makes sense, because if that patient is no longer awake and alert and it says that, that's a big problem. If the patient is now awake and alert and it says that the patient isn't because they weren't, that's a problem. So you want to make sure information lines up. Avoid it if you can, but if you're not, before you push submit, make sure it's right. Auto-populate. If the information is not what you need and doesn't paint a picture of your patient, contact IT. Don't let that just stand. A lot of times we get used to working, we're doing our thing and we're getting it done and there's so much to do and it's so fast we have to do it that we're not into this is an issue. We're into I got it done, I moved on. Hey, you be the answer. Take care of the problem, right? Remember, the electronic health record is time traced. So this is important. And this information is discoverable, meaning an attorney that wants it can get it all of it. So you want to double check and make sure it's right. Drop down menus. Oh my God, there have been so many problems with this system because of people using the drop down menus. Use it, but use it good. Make sure it's useful, right? Make sure the meanings of each area are clear to you. Make sure everybody understands it the same, right? Make sure of that. All are on the same page. That's the big thing with drop down menus. And make sure you're painting a picture of the patient. That is vital. So you want to update the system after each entry. Sometimes people forget to do that. And so you think you put it in and it's not in because you didn't update. So what was there is what's still there. Remember that, right? So attend trainings. If there is a training class, go to it. Updated information is often given. You want to stay up on this thing, how to use it. You can also raise your hand and probably offer information they need, whoever's giving the class, to try to do something better to improve it even further. Staff meetings and huddles, sometimes good places too at the end, possibly bring up issues. So ongoing projects, you want to bring it up because everybody wants to be on the same page. That is vital. Slow down, slow down. Review the information before you enter it. Don't rush. You know what? I'm told that a lot of times we're rushing because a lot of people want to get to Facebook and Instagram and stuff. And I'm being honest with you. Now I'm putting it out there. Yes, don't do that. In all fairness to your patient and for all fairness to yourselves, don't do that. There's sometimes missing information from the template. We've already talked about it. What are you going to do? Call IT, call somebody, report it to management. This thing doesn't have what it needs. This area should also, I need to write, I don't have a place to put, this doesn't make sense. How about this? What are we going to do about it? You got to do it. Corrections, find out your system. How does it allow for corrections, right? Is it going to lock it out and you can't correct? Learn, does it open up a certain time for you to correct these things? What are we doing? Find out. Conflict, if anything is conflicting, that's a big problem. Raise that issue. Please raise that issue. With that, I'm saying these things are things you need to consider. It's a challenge. You know, we are critical thinkers. We are awesome. So what happens when the drop-down menu is not enough, right? The system can't cover all scenarios. So you want to type in things when you can. You want to type in. Remember, that's an option you need to look for and know how to do well. Write notes. Write notes. It's okay. Generally, some places or some people are of the belief that we need to decrease our narratives. But you better be careful with that. If the system doesn't allow you to give the information, do not decrease your narrative or limit how much you decrease it, because that's vital, right? The risk, we're looking for problems in the system. Don't be afraid to speak out. Don't be afraid of risk management. We love them. Risk management, they are our friends and they're helping us out, right? So I want you to understand that. They are here looking for patterns of behavior, not really looking at you and trying to find a problem with you. They're looking at where we can improve the system. Let's help. Let's make this the best tool possible everywhere. A friend recently told me that a patient passed away in an ICU setting at about 8 p.m. The nurse and the staff, of course, what we do, we're trying to call the doctor. We're calling the doctor just to make him aware that the patient passed away. Got in touch with the doctor at 11:30 p.m. Well, that's when the doctor called back. And the doctor was told the patient passed away at 8 p.m. It was noted that the doctor was home doing their medical writing, their doctor writing, if you will. The doctor had been writing notes on this patient all through the evening. So you had notes from 9 o'clock, 10:15 on a patient that was deceased. Whose fault? I'm not going to say anybody's fault. I'm saying that system right now. So we have to be careful, okay? We have to be really careful with what we do and how we do it in the system. But we want to work together to make this the best system so we can give the best quality care that we can give for patients. So if you need to get in touch with me, my name is Dawn Grace Jones. I'm a registered nurse for a long time. I am also an attorney for a long time, right? So my phone number is on the screen. My email's on the screen. My website, the website is on the screen. Go to that website, dawngracejones.com. Sign up for the newsletter and you get a lot of information, a lot of free blogs and stuff like that. Go through that website and enjoy the information. It's for all of us, right? I really enjoyed speaking with you. I pray that this information is useful to you. And you make sure everybody you know gets to look at this information and get something out of it, because it is for us. If you have any questions, You send those questions, please, to hello@dawngracejones.com within 10 days of your date of looking at this. So I want you to take 7 to 10 days to send me questions from your group. You know, you're looking at this individually, probably, and that's fine. And I'm happy you're looking at it. But I mean, from the time that you're looking at it, 7 to 10 days forward, I want to answer your questions. Now, I'll answer any question generally. Don't worry about it. And if you need to see me for consultation, I'm just going to put it out there because I'm just letting you know, because you can arrange a time for free one-on-one. But it's law.dawngracejones.com. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for the electronic health record. Document properly, avoid litigation. That's what you want to do. So this is the legal aspects of documentation. I am Dawn Grace Jones. I thank you for your time. I hope you gained from this information. I pray that it's meaningful for you and it helps you not get sued, and you can share it as it relates to telling others about it, and let them go to the website and download this webinar as well, because I want everybody to see it. And if you'd like, get the book. It's a tool. I'm told a tool that all of us can use. God bless. Be safe and effective. Bye-bye.